Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Spirit Daughter podcast. I'm Jill Winterstein, aka Spirit Daughter, and today I am talking with astrologer, tarot reader, and psychic medium, Meghan Rose. This is such a fun conversation. We dive deep into her Scorpio stellium, and we understand why depth is part of her soul's existence. She's here to transform, and I can't wait for you to hear this one. Welcome, Meghan. All right. Welcome to the Spirit Daughter podcast, Meghan. I'm so excited to have you here to get into a nice, deep astrological discussion. It's rare that I talk to another astrologer. So, I mean, that's the Leo in me. But I'm excited to do that over the next 60 minutes or so. So welcome to the podcast.
Likewise, thank you so much, Jill. It's always a gift to be able to speak the same astrological language as somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when I first looked at your chart, I was like, whoa, that's a lot of Scorpio. And it kind of makes sense because I remember first meeting you and thinking like, is she a Scorpio? And, and then I found out you're actually a Virgo sun sign. And that also tracks now that I know you, but I feel like you actually have to get to know that part of you. Like your Scorpio, even though you're Taurus rising, you have your sun in Virgo, your Scorpio stellium. She has 5 placements in Scorpio, everyone. Just screams through the screen everywhere. It just exudes from you in a great way. But I was like blown away by that much Scorpio.
Oh, yeah. It gets intense over here. I kind of joke with people, especially we recently had a full moon in Scorpio, and I felt like everybody in my life was texting me like, what is going on? I feel haywire. Like nothing is making sense. I feel like I'm going to break down and cry. And I'm like, babe, welcome to my everyday world.
Yeah. It's very intense, especially with that moon at 29 degrees, conjunct Pluto at 25. I like looked at this and my Leo stellium was like, do you need to go out dancing? Like, do you need to party a bit?
Like just looking at my chart is intense. No, honestly, I tell people all the time, like the meme of like, who's the black cat? Who's the golden retriever in all of your relationships? And I'm like, I'm black cat.
Yeah.
11 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Like that's my role forever in this life and every other one.
Yeah. Yeah. I am not. I'm probably the golden retriever.
That's why we get along. That's why we like to chit chat. We balance each other out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But we'll get into your chart. You obviously know. My first question, most people, is like, how much do you know about your chart? You obviously know a ton about your chart. But we'll get into it. And we're using Placidus, everyone. I asked, because some astrologers are whole sign astrologers, but Meghan and I are both Placidus astrologers. So that means for most people, usually what that means is they'll have 2 signs governing a house or connecting with a house. I like to use connecting because I feel like it just reads better. And when we say like governed, it means like ruling. And then people are like, can't there only be one sign ruling a house? And it's like, no, most of us, if we're using Placidus, have 2 signs, sometimes 3 even, connecting with a house. And where that really matters is when we're looking at the current sky. So when we're looking at where the moon is for a new moon or full moon, we want to know exactly the degree and the exact house that falls in. So we'll get right into it. So we have a Taurus rising here. And you have your south node, though, in Taurus. And so one of the first things I look at, I know we always talk about the big 3 on this podcast, sun, rising, moon. I also love to look at the nodes. I have a deep fascination with the lunar nodes because I think they just show us our life path and they show us who we were in a previous life, what we came into this world knowing, having as our comfort zone, what we're attached to, our shadows. Like anytime we're doing shadow work, which Scorpios love shadow work, or anybody with a ton of Scorpio placements like Meghan, we're looking at the south node. And so you have a south node that is in your first house, and then you have your north node in Scorpio with 4 other placements in your 7th house. So you're really walking from Taurus into complexity. So your whole life path is geared to go deeper and deeper and deeper and more complex, specifically with the other. And I find that fascinating that all this depth in Scorpio, where your soul is headed, the direction you're here to walk, is in the seventh house. So it's in partnership, it's with another. And so I would love to know from you how that really shows up in your life to have not just your North Node in Scorpio, but also your moon, your Pluto, your Jupiter, all in the seventh house. And then you have your Venus right on the descendant in the sixth, also in Scorpio. So you're reaching for that Venus. Our descendant is opposite our ascendant. And so it always feels just out of reach. And I would love to know how this all shows up for you and how you navigate that.
Yeah, I mean, you broke it down perfectly, Jill. I feel like so much of this starts from conception to my early childhood age. My parents tried conceiving for over 18 months before I was
Wow.
conceived. And I'm a huge believer in the South Node playing a part in your like in utero experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and I have this kind of funky karmic thing with one another where I'm a Virgo sun with a Taurus rising and she's a Taurus sun with a Virgo rising.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like that kind of like, yes, the comfort zone, but also the familiarity with Taurian energy for me started in the womb. And I'm an only child. So the comfort of being alone or in isolation with my South Node in the first really starts tracking. But the moment that I got to, I mean, I say like an appropriate dating age, but now in 2026, it's just like looking back on all of this, I'm like, we're rewriting everything. But I started getting into back-to-back long-term like relationships at the age of 14 and didn't really break that cycle until I got into my nodal opposition. So I had taken a year and a half off from dating and then ended up meeting a partner that I was engaged to for a period of time when I was in my nodal opposition. So I feel like this dance between the familiarity of being alone or being in very kind of surface level, emotionally unavailable connections is where my South Node in Taurus translates so on the nose out of my chart. And like you said, with that pileup of scorpionic planets, and especially with my Venus on the descendant and my North Node in my seventh house in Scorpio as well, it's like that feeling of being able to go so deep and feel like all of the good, bad, ugly, and in between is not only a part of the relationship, but accepted and appreciated has absolutely felt like it's just out of reach for me. I'm in no way, shape, or form disappointed by being single at this point in my life, or like, you know, I am a huge proponent of saying like wait until post Saturn return to get married if you have the active choice.
Yes.
So I mentioned like I got engaged, but I am no longer engaged.
Yeah.
And I think all of it worked out perfectly, as much as it was messy and it was raw and it was ugly at times. Like my journey of partnership and striving to find someone, and not even just romantically, but like any relationships where I can connect with other people and go deep. I'm just not willing to settle. And I think that's where my North Node in Scorpio really pans out, with it sitting in my seventh.
I actually, when I see this much in the seventh house, and especially this much in Scorpio in the seventh house, but really when I see all of these placements in the seventh house, or like 4 or more, even 3 or more, I always advise people to spend some time alone in their life. Because normally when there's this much in your seventh house, you don't want to. You end up in deep relationships, long-term relationships, maybe even getting engaged before your Saturn return. And I agree with you. If we can, we should all wait to get married until after our Saturn return. Speaking of our experience, my first marriage was, well, I had just turned 30. So I was right there. I literally 2 months after I turned 30, I got married. And then I got divorced at 33. So
it's like the failed first try club, I swear to you.
Yes, exactly. But I do find that people with this much energy and activation in their seventh house, which is the house of partnerships, they're seeking a partner from a very early age, and they end up in long-term relationships that don't always work out. Some do if they're lucky. But then my advice really is spend time alone. Like, get to know yourself without the other. Right? Get to know who you are, what you like. Because when we're in a long-term committed relationship, we end up merging. And sometimes it can actually stop our evolution and our growth because we don't want to become somebody else that person doesn't recognize, or we actually like suppress our true tendencies for this relationship. And so I think anybody who has this much in their seventh house needs like a solid year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years alone, and like really alone. And that doesn't mean you can't have flings, right? I mean, I have a Leo stellium, so I'm fine with the flings. Like, have fun, have lots of fun.
Yes. And my Scorpio stellium is just like, girl, like I'm going to have urges regardless of whether or not I'm in a partnership. But it's almost like especially looking at my own chart or seeing anybody else's chart where there's a house stellium, it's kind of like musical chairs where it's like that chair is already occupied. So bringing somebody else in, it's like, my seventh house stellium's like, no, babe, like we're fine. We don't need somebody else sitting on our lap. Like we have this seat covered.
Yeah.
So
I like that you have it covered. Yeah. And you do. And so you spend some time alone, right? Get to know yourself. Have fun. Have your flings, right? You're in Rome. I mean, that sounds like fun.
absolutely. I mean, it's been just full of pasta and wine and all of the other pleasures of life. This is like,
and like I said, when I was first looking at your chart, because there's a lot of seriousness and depth in your chart, not just this Scorpio stellium that we're talking about, but Sun and Virgo can be very serious. And then you have Capricorn right at the top on your midheaven, and you have your Saturn in Pisces in the 11th. Like, there's a lot of seriousness in there. And then you have a wound, your Chiron in your 5th. And so I always look to Chiron to be like, okay, what are they healing this lifetime? What did they come into this world with? Chiron, I feel, represents our deepest wounds from lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, and we're here to heal them. And Chiron in the 5th, to me, really speaks to a wound around play, around joy, around experiencing life to the fullest, around lightening up, right? Letting your guard down, like just dancing for the sake of dancing, doing things that aren't productive. You know, you have this Chiron and Virgo in your 5th. And so there's a wound around not being productive, right? Not being good enough, right? Feeling like you have to keep trying and trying and trying and trying. And you can't just have joy and creative expression for the sake of the joy of it. Like, it always has to be geared towards something. And so I'm looking at all this seriousness and depth in your chart, which is powerful and transformative. And I'm sure the people and the clients you work with can feel that you can hold this kind of depth. And then I'm seeing this Chiron in the 5th, and I'm going, man, I hope she's having some fun in life. I just want to, and like I said, that Leo stellium in my chart is just like, I want to take her out dancing. I want to take her out to have some wine, to have some fun. Like, I feel like if I was going to give you medicine, like that's what it would be. It would be like, let's go out and party, you know, in like the best way possible.
Totally. Well, and it's so funny that you bring it up too, Jill, because I feel like, especially right now with the South Node in Virgo, it's really helped me get familiar with that wound, like to try to bring a sense of comfort to the wound of my chart. And my whole mantra since I moved here is just to say yes.
Yeah.
Like, say yes to life, say yes to the invitations. I have this whole now like studio space in my new home where one of the drawers, of course, because it's still in Virgo, one of the drawers is fully dedicated to all of like my paint and my art supplies, and like having my yoga mat out and just like allowing myself to flow without any sort of instruction. And I mean, it's nearly impossible to be in this city without being swept up in the beauty of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
it has fully transformed my whole existence, being somewhere that is beautiful, that is walkable, and also does not hurt that it's full of beautiful people.
Yeah. I think that's good for you. I think this is a very good choice. Speaking of location, have you looked at your astrocartography around Rome? What does that speak to? We don't really talk about that a ton on this podcast, but people are always asking me about it. So
yeah, so I've dedicated my work in astrology to walking my talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no issue like embarrassing myself, making mistakes, like
Mm-hmm.
going through the throes, like, you know, trying something and failing at it, because I feel like that's the only way that I can really preach any of what I share.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And astrocartography is one of my most popular offerings with my clientele. So when I moved, it was after a year and a half of solo traveling through Europe and Mexico,
Okay.
and went on my sun line in Mexico City, and
Wow.
like tried my Mercury line up in Amsterdam, and my Mars line out in Portugal, and finally ended up in this kind of, you know, like ironically, not so ironically, crotch of my Mercury line and my Venus line.
Okay. Okay.
With Rome right smack dab in the middle.
Oh, interesting.
So
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
it's been really powerful and transformational for me, especially tapping on my Mercury in Libra in my 6th, and then my Venus in Scorpio in my 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you talked about certain houses answering sometimes even to 3 signs, because my 6th starts in Virgo, transitions through Libra, ends off in Scorpio. And to me, it's just been like this total beautiful transformation of my daily habits, my routine, and also fully overcame like a year and a half of really awful medical issues that plagued the last year and a half that I was in LA. So it's just been incredible, honestly, being out here between those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. I've often looked at that. I feel at home in LA. I don't really have much that runs through LA or even near it. Honestly, my sun line runs right through Hilo. And so I got really excited when I saw that, and I went there and I was like, this is fine, but like, I don't feel like it's home.
Yeah, you're like, I'm already the sun. Like, what do I need another sun for?
Yeah, I was really excited though. I was like, maybe I'm meant to live in Hilo, because that's where my sunline runs like directly through Hilo. And so that was really exciting. And then it was somewhat disappointing when I got there and was like, okay, I don't feel like this is home. So moving on. My Venus line does run through Bali, and I do love being in Bali.
too.
I love it. I mean, who doesn't, right? And so I always joke with my husband.
Girl,
I'm
we
like,
need to go together at some point.
I know. I'm always like, that's where we're retiring. We're retiring in Bali, because I find that your Venus line can be like a really great place to retire. So, but if everybody listening, if you've never dove into this science, it is a real science, and reading one of these charts is next level. I highly recommend it.
So accurate.
And it's really great, especially if you are in a point, like my home base is now LA, like my kids are in school here, like, you know, we're not leaving. But if you're at a point, especially before your first Saturn return, if you're wandering and you're looking for where to live, I think that this can be a really great guide and roadmap, astrocartography, and just looking at the different lines. And even if you don't understand much, just like seeing, like you said, like, I'm going to find my sun line, I'm going to visit there, I'm going to find my Venus line, I'm going to find my Mercury Mercury line and visit there and just see how it feels, how it feels to me, how it feels to my intuition. You don't even have to know much. It's like just travel for a while, which is why traveling in your 20s, 30s is amazing.
Absolutely. And it kind of taps back into the messaging that you had for my full seventh house and
Mm,
taking a long period of time off from dating. At the point that I did that solo trip, that was smack dab in the midst of 2.5 years off
hmm
of relationships. And
Yeah.
it allowed me the chance to sit with my fifth house Chiron, where, I mean, candidly, I've spoken about this before, so it's like there's no shame in the game. But I went through my Mars line in Portugal and ended up having like a first experience sexually.
Mm,
And it was like so life altering and like eye opening. I was only halfway through this trip. And then when I ended up back in Amsterdam for a month and a half, it was on my Mercury line and ended up connecting with somebody who's now been one of my best friends for the last 5.5 years, and really just gave me this total alternate look at myself, my life, my chart, by saying it's not a punishment to be alone. It's not a punishment to
hmm
have to go on trips by yourself, to,
hmm
go through these kind of open portals. Like I look at these lines as doors that you can open and kind of see different nuanced versions of yourself.
hmm hmm
And I'm somebody who was born on my Neptune and Uranus lines.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
That's
my
powerful for
whole
you
life,
because you have a conjunction.
girl. Yes, in my 10th, like right on my midheaven. So it's like sitting in that energy back home. It was like everything was unpredictable, so many sudden shakeups and changes. I found my spiritual practice there by the time that I was 21.
hmm
And it was
hmm
what catapulted me over to LA. But I spent 8 years in Los Angeles, and that was on both my moon and my Pluto lines, which,
So
as
interesting.
you mentioned, are
Are
conjunct
conjunct.
in
Yeah.
my seventh.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I went from one conjunction to the next
Yeah.
and then was like, I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, you have Uranus and Neptune, as you know, conjunct right in Capricorn at your 10th house, right at your midheaven. And you're part of that generation. This is a generational, anybody born between 1986 and 93. I think their exacts were in 93. So this is a whole group of people have this conjunction in Capricorn in their chart, not necessarily in their 10th house. That's going to depend on the rising sign. But it's interesting that you were actually born, right, on lines that both those lines. And, that's another part of your chart that brings this like depth and seriousness and structure, and also really pulls at the thread of your career. Like it's very clear to me why you're into astrology and why you're into sort of mystical and spiritual things, because you have Uranus, the great disruptor, right in your career house, which means like you were never going to become an accountant, or not that there's anything wrong with being an
I
accountant,
tried.
but you weren't meant to work like a 9 to 5 in an office. Like if you have Uranus in the 10th house, you're not gonna, your soul's not gonna feel satisfied for that. Uranus in the 10th house means you're gonna break the mold in some way on whatever traditional path that is in that house, right? So if your Uranus, for instance, falls in the 7th, you would be breaking the traditional mold of relationships. But in your life's work house, 10th house, you're breaking the mold in your life's work and in your career. So you're not working a 9 to 5. You're not worried about a 401k.
Not at all. I mean, I'm sure that my parents, my poor parents with an only child, they're like, oh,
Mhm.
she's going to be like the gift horse that like gets us out of this mess. And I was just like, no, like
Yeah, I
I
hear you.
tried private investments. I tried the corporate
Well, that's
lifestyle.
the
I hit my burnout
Capricorn.
at 23. Girl. I mean, I legitimately tell people, I'm like, I was riding off of birthday money and babysitting money from like 12 onward. I paid for myself to go to college. Like I truly embodied all of that Capricorn energy up until I left New England. So like being born on
Mm,
those
mhm,
lines
mhm,
and having
mhm,
so much focus on like I was an A+ student, put myself through college, worked a full-time
mhm.
job while I went to school full time, still got a 4.0. Like I was in my Capricorn. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought when I was living back where I was born under those lines that it was like, this is my only option. And then I
Mm-hmm.
moved to LA
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, my actual interests and my actual passions matter so
Mm-hmm.
much more than
Mm-hmm.
perceived success.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that Neptune right there. Usually when I see Neptune right here on the midheaven, they're usually like an artist of some type, like a
Mhm.
singer-songwriter, something of that nature. But I think that that creativity and that visionary and that imagination comes out in the spiritual work you do, which you're highly committed to because of that Saturn and Pisces. You know, that's that commitment to spirituality. Another placement that says you're probably not going to be in finance or work on Wall Street.
Yeah.
So Saturn and Pisces is like you are committed to the spiritual, you're committed to the mystical, you're committed to understanding the bigger things of the universe. And it's in your 11th house, so you're here to bring them to the community in a larger way. And I think that's really interesting because your seventh house, stellium, really speaks to depth in one on one partnerships. And that also includes like one on one client relationships, like the people who you give
Mhm.
sessions to. I think I've never had a session from you, but I can see from your chart you're probably amazing because you can go deep and you actually can hold things that other people can't. Like nothing in anybody's psyche scares you. I'm sure that people could tell
So,
you like the deepest, darkest secrets that they've never told anybody, and you would just hold them with compassion and care and be able to truly, truly hold them, not just be like, oh, yeah, let's talk about that. No, you're going to like sit in reverence for their journey and like honor them and be able to like go deep and even deeper with them so they get to that understanding. This Saturn, though, in Pisces in the 11th house is a challenge. I see it as a challenge in a way, and a good challenge that says,
mhm.
okay, how can you bring that depth that you go into in your one-on-one relationships with people to a larger community, 11th house,
Mhm.
right? And how can you have boundaries there so that you don't feel drained
Mhm.
or burnt out, right? Because when we see Saturn and Pisces in the 11th, it's like, okay, you're meant to bring some of these larger universal topics to the community, but you need boundaries with it, or else you'll end up depleted. You'll end up taking on too much of other people's energy. And, the empathic nature of all of your water placements will come out. And so I see it as a journey. Like when I saw this Saturn in the 11th, I'm like, oh, she's got a journey here to like bring all of this depth and all of this knowledge that she can go in these one-on-one sessions with people to a larger community with proper boundaries so that you don't end up feeling resentful or burnt out or like you can't tell who is who and what is what. Is this mine? Is this theirs? And so like how does that show up in the work you do?
Yeah, well, it's funny to me, Jill, because it goes back to the initial conversation that we had about the nodes and how much they play a part in our
Mhm.
life's path. And right now, as we're recording this, we have the North Node in Pisces, and
Mhm.
it's lighting up that same house that my Saturn is in.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this truly was, as much as it was such an incredibly challenging period of time, and also just coming off of having my Saturn return, this was the first time that I started getting opportunities and almost like epiphanic, like subconscious expansion where I was like, I can't do the one on one forever and get my life's purpose met. So I I guess this is kind of my announcement. I'm in the process of writing my first book. I got
Mm.
signed to a major publisher back in the States. So
Congratulations.
that's being,
Amazing.
thank you. That's being submitted this year. Um, Working on a larger project with an app developer, and
Mhm.
then also found my way onto Substack, where I started building a subscription based community that's being enjoyed
Mhm.
online virtually from wherever in the world. And that was really so much more of where I wanted to start walking my talk, where it's like, I was resonating a lot with very deep people who had very deep traumatic wounds who ultimately wanted a better life for themselves. And in a way, it was like looking in a mirror every time that I would have these one-on-one sessions. But it gets to a point where it's like, you don't just want to stare in the mirror. You want to be able to get out and enjoy the life that you're living with the being that you're seeing in the mirror. So my move to Italy, and then all of these opportunities that have allowed for scaling and expansion of my work to more than just one person for an hour at a time has been the most transformational experience, and really does make me feel like I'm finally walking in my life's path and purpose, and hopefully giving and touching and reaching the people that actually need me, rather than solely the people who can invest in the one-on-one work.
Yeah, I find it's interesting that you're talking about writing as a natural boundary. When I first started Spirit Daughter, I have my North Node in Virgo, so boundaries obviously are a life lesson for me, with a South Node in Pisces and a North Node in Virgo. Like, I'm here to kind of understand how to like take all of this fluid knowledge that has no boundaries and like put it in tight, neat little boxes, which were the workbooks. Like, when I started writing the workbooks, I was like, oh, I understand my nodal path. I get this now. Before it was kind of like, is it this? Is it that? But in any event, I found that like writing, like you're talking about, is a way to bring knowledge to the community on a much larger scale, with boundaries, right? That act of writing is the boundary itself, right? The fact that it's not you speaking on a stage, for instance. It's you writing a book that people are going to read. And so I think that is just a great way. And I found from my own experience, which my journey with Spirit Daughter is kind of the reverse of what you're talking about. I started with highly scalable products that served a very, very, very large community. And I almost never did one-on-one work. And now, particularly with the podcast, it's kind of a blend, because it's like a one-on-one reading with somebody where sometimes we go really, really deep, yet it like is broadcasted. So it serves like a larger community. But
and with my stuff, it was my nodal opposition that finally got me to start using social media, which I account heavily over to the 11th house. And I love now for you, with this period of time being nodal opposition time, where it's like you start to see those shifts in the way that you've done things into the ways that you could be doing things.
Yeah.
Which is why I love those periods of time. Like, there's such wake up calls to the monotony of the familiarity that we've created.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so fascinating. We've talked a lot about, I call them reverse nodal returns, the nodal opposition. So many people come to me for like a chart reading, even just outside of this podcast, during either a nodal return or a reverse nodal return. Like, it's such a pattern where I think even the first like 5 guests that we had on this podcast, I was like, oh, you're in a nodal return. Oh, you're in a reverse nodal return. I'm like, this is basically a podcast about nodal returns at the unintentionally. But I just find they're so important periods. And, you know, I'm coming towards the end of my reverse nodal return, which will end, you know, in July, when the nodes shift into Leo and Aquarius. And that'll bring a whole new bag of things, because I have four placements in Leo. So that's going to be really interesting when the South Node kisses them all. But so I'm ending that. And I will say, like, the last 15 months or so have just been so life-changing with the launch of my book, with the launch of this podcast. And I really have felt the reverse nodal return, which I find actually brings a little less drama than a true nodal return. And so it's like you get all the benefits of like the quantum leap on your karmic path without a ton of drama. So that's how I've always felt them. I don't know if you agree. And I actually like a reverse nodal return better than a nodal return.
No, totally. I kind of tend to joke around. I'm an ex-theater kid, so I always talk about the nodal opposition as like the time where you're testing the play out versus like opening night being more of the nodal return. There's so much less stress and pressure. It's almost like a checkpoint. And I feel like it's a really great opportunity for people to understand, with grace and compassion, like, where have I been veering off track? And can I start to honor the fact that when I'm quote unquote off track, it's really just an ebb and a flow, and your ability to ride the highs and the lows. Yeah, much more of a checkpoint than the opening night.
I'd love to talk to you about Jupiter and Leo. And so, obviously, as a Leo, and I have Jupiter in Leo, I'm super excited about Jupiter entering Leo. And so,
It's so sexy. It's so
it's so
fun.
fun. I can't wait. But looking at your chart, I'm seeing that I'm like, oh, wow, Jupiter's going to square all of these Scorpio placements for you. And speaking as a Leo, like I celebrated when Uranus went into Gemini and left Taurus, because when Uranus was in Taurus, it squared all my placements in Leo, and I have 4 placements in Leo, and I felt that. Like I felt those squares like deep into my soul. And so I'm very sensitive to these squares right now. And so I'm looking at Jupiter and Leo, and I'm like, oh yeah, how is she going to navigate when Jupiter right off the bat is going to square your Venus, and then it's going to square your Jupiter, and then it's going to touch your, square your North Node. And I think Jupiter is a much more lovely square than Uranus. Like the Uranus square, it's just like, okay, we're going deep, we're breaking some things, there's some friction. Like it was painful, to be honest. And I kept being like, what is going on? What is happening? And then I'd be like, oh, right. Yeah, Uranus is squaring my Jupiter right now. So, for you, Jupiter is going to square all of these placements. And I think it will be a lot softer. It won't feel so tense compared to Uranus square. But still, I mean, it's going to square your Pluto. It's going to square your moon. So do you have a plan for that? Have you thought about that? I'm like, do we need to prepare you?
No, it starts off in my 4th, transitions into my 5th. I'm definitely in the throes right now of kind of breaking away from patterned familial ideologies and recognizing my role in my family lineage to kind of self-prioritize, listen to my own inner voice, follow my own path, obviously, like quite literally, but also figuratively. And then it's also kind of making this kind of shift motion with the South Node entering into Leo as well, where I'm like, this is really going to be a long period of time for me to sit with the way that I was raised, my idea of sense and safety, but then also starting up at the end of the summer, like activating how I can enjoy my life and play and pleasure and my like sexual expression and my creative hobbies and all of these things at the same time, which to me feels, I mean, like Jung and Freud were famous and famed for their work for a reason. Like I think that those things are so deeply interwoven. And I guess when you ask if I have a plan, my only plan is just to like let my inner child run the show. Like I cut myself off from so many of my hobbies at a really young age due to rejection and bullying. Like I was raised at the period of time where like having red hair meant that you were soulless, and like being in theater meant that you were like, I mean, I grew up in New England, so we were always like 250 years behind everybody else, but it meant like so much about yourself outside of who you actually were. And I think rediscovering the fact that like I can use social media as a stage, and like I've always loved poetry and writing since I was very young. I used to like compete in poetry contests and write my own poems as a very young kid. So like rediscovering that as an adult. And also, like you were saying, like letting myself having fun without needing to be tied down, and realizing that my true actual dream partnership would not have any sort of power dynamics or control involved with them. So for anybody that knew me back when I was dating men twice my age, I've healed. I went to therapy.
That's such a Scorpio in the seventh house. I have to say, like, so many people I talk to, Scorpio in the seventh house, they end up, I'm always like, did you date the bad boy who rides the motorcycle and had tattoos at a young age? And he was like in his 20s and you were a teenager. And everybody's like, yes, yes, I
Mhm.
did.
Yeah, my mom literally had to sign off on my 21-year-old boyfriend going to prom with me when I was 16 because he could have brought alcohol there.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
just like, what?
Wow.
This,
Wow.
but that's astrology, like playing out. It's like
Yeah.
we can deny the pattern of it all, or we can kind of laugh and learn and like use it as a language.
Yeah. 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 I see it as a tool. I mean, I'm always looking at it as a framework, not as like, this is what you're destined. Like, we all have free will, but, you know, it's a tool. It's a tool. And so, yeah, I think especially when Jupiter gets into your fifth house, like, have fun, like, enjoy life, you know, and as it squares these, you know, placements in Scorpio, like, have fun with them and let it bring up things, you know, within the realm of partnership, within the realm of the other, while staying, you know, true to who you are, and let it show you how to have fun, like even in your one-on-one relationships, but like keeping them light. And I would highly suggest to, if you don't want to have a baby, be very careful because I have found so many people that when Jupiter is transiting their fifth house, they have a baby. And so if that's not in your cards or you don't want that in your cards, then just be aware of that. So
Oh my God. I feel like we're going to listen back on this episode at some point, and it's going to be like the seeds were sown as a form of manifestation. I was just out in Tuscany with three of my close girlfriends for an overnight trip, and I looked at them and I was like, would you guys communally raise my baby with me if I had a baby? And they all immediately, no pause, were like, yes, absolutely, we're there.
yeah.
Like they don't want to have babies themselves. And most of them are around 10 years older than me, which again, with the heavy Capricorn and Scorpio placements for me has always kind of been my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm an only child. So part of the like bullying and getting laid into when I was younger, it was this group of girls that I went to school with. And it was like, they knew the subconscious things to hit. And one of my big insecurities was being an only child. And they would be like, isn't it weird that you're never going to have aunts or uncles for your kids? Isn't it weird that your kids won't ever have cousins? Like just wildly like
Also not
psychological, like
true.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, no, chosen family's a thing.
Well,
And
also,
I'm
like, I'm
probably
an
going to
only
marry.
child and I married a man who's one of four. And so my kids have
Right.
aunts and uncles and they have 8 cousins. So not true.
Okay. You're also an expander for me in that way because I've said that. Like, I've always said, I see myself eventually after I'm done with all of the craziness of the seventh house stellium and dating whoever, you know, whenever. That I would end up with a man who came from a very large family, and we would have not only his family to rely on, but my chosen family network to rely on. And as much as it doesn't really make sense now, when I look at my chart and these transits coming up, I'm like, it's beyond my human comprehension, but I do see having my first child during that time. Falling in love with somebody that allows me to make lightness out of the darkness that I've been through
Mm-hmm.
and really transmuting any of the familial issues that I grew up around
Yeah.
and give me the opportunity to build a family dynamic that is so rooted in open communication and everybody feeling seen and heard and connecting with the world and not feeling afraid to express yourself, like all of the fifth house Chiron stuff
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you and I call it the wounded healer. But I think that placement in somebody's chart is such an indicator of where you can do further wounding to yourself or
Mm-hmm.
finally deeply heal
Yeah.
in a way that you've not
Or
experienced prior to
both.
that. And that is my hope. Exactly.
Sometimes we have to, like, deepen the wound to heal it from its root. And I find that happens a lot with Chiron, especially, Jupiter's going to touch Chiron in 2027 for you. And so when it shifts into Virgo, and so that'll be interesting. And then it'll hit your sun. And then eventually Jupiter will get to all of these Scorpio placements. And I'm like, that might be the time that you really find your true soulmate. You've got time.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you you have time. Like, you have plenty of time. And anybody listening, you have plenty of time. Get through your Saturn return, have some fun, get through, a few of these Jupiter transiting your fifth house. Maybe the next time it comes around, that will bring the family. But I hear you with the only child, and I will say that I'm on my second marriage. My first marriage was also to a man who was one of four. And so I think that the only child part of me really sought out. And the two men, by the way, have very, very little in common other than that.
You're like, I just want everybody to know that I did heal in the process of finding my second husband.
I did heal. And that's actually the subject of my book, or part of my book is healing from my first marriage and then getting into my second marriage. My second marriage is also to a fellow Leo, which actually worked out really well for me. I know a lot of...
You found your path.
Yeah. And we have a Leo. Our first son is a Leo. I know. And then my second son is a Cancer, and he has a Leo moon and a Leo rising. And so we're just like the house of Leo. Like we couldn't even get away with it if we tried, So.
Oh, and it's such like a luminary house as well. Like I love your Cancer baby just being like, and I'm the reflector for all of this sunlight.
Yeah. Well, when he was, he's kind of grown out of it, but when he was like 2, he was obsessed with being a firefighter. Like that's all he wanted to do was be a firefighter. And I was like, yeah, because he lives with a bunch of Leos. He's the water. He just wants to put us all out.
He's like, my whole existence is being the water around a bunch of flames. Like, of course, that's what I want to do.
Like he knew it from the age of 2. Yeah. So, but I will say that was one of my worries, and not because I was bullied, but even growing up, I was like, are my kids going to have aunts and uncles and cousins? Because I had really great aunts who I loved, and I had my cousins, because I was an only child, were like my sisters, and still are to this day. Like my one cousin, she's like my sister. Like I call her my sister. Her daughter I call my niece. And so I was so close to them, and so it does give me great comfort that my kids have aunts and uncles, and they do have cousins, and so it is possible as an only child to have that. I'm trying to heal some of this early wound that you had.
Thank you. Oh, Jill. Well, and it's funny too to me, like, as you were talking about, like, everybody can take a little bit of this and like realize that you're not in a rush. I'm sitting there having this wake up moment right now where it's like confusing to me as a society why like we have the tradition of getting married and then having kids if Jupiter is chronologically always going to hit your 5th before your 7th.
Right.
And I'm sitting here being like, no, like you expand your family and like do all of these things. It's in your own time, and your family is the family that you choose. And yeah, I just love how my chart has kind of played that out, where it's like anybody, including like my baby cousin is like my sister. We have that same relationship and bond. But I have so many girlfriends that are that way with me too, where I'm like, if you can meet my scorpionic 7th depth and like be able to laugh about really heavy things with me, like you're going the long haul with me. Like you will be the aunts and uncles to my kids.
Yes. Yeah. And that's right. And it's your chosen family. Like my best friend, she's Aunt Allie, our other best friend is Uncle Ryan, and so that's just the way it is. And that's what happens. And they're the ones that like are in LA. Like my kids' actual aunts and uncles don't live in LA. So, they have their Aunt Ellie and their Uncle Ryan who like they adore, and so you do have your chosen family, and we do choose it all. And nobody ever needs to be in a rush for anything. I mean, I didn't have my first kid until I was 40. So, and I really knew who I was, and I had gone through, I don't know, like I feel like 5 different lifetimes before I had my first kid. And so, I mean, I do probably get more like sometimes my husband and I laugh because we're like, yeah, this is why people have kids in their 20s because we're exhausted, but, but overall,
Now
it's
you have the money to hire help. So it's like there's a
exactly like,
trade-off.
we have the money to hire help now, where I wouldn't have had the money to hire help in my 20s. So it's all, it's
Mhm.
all different versions. Or like my cousin did have a child very young, and she's like, yeah, I kind of did it in reverse, and now I'm traveling the world, but like I have the money to travel the world, alone. And I like
Right.
traveled the world
And
in my
not have to
20s
stay in
with
the
nothing,
hospital.
so it's all how you want to
Exactly.
play it. And I don't think anybody has to feel like they have to live by society's rules around when to get married or when to have kids. And it's all your own life path and what you're called to do. And especially when you're talking about children, because now you're entering in a soul contract with another energy and, another being. And it's like you might have a soul contract with somebody who wants to come in earlier or someone who wants to come in later. And so we're dealing with like a lot of karmic relationships here, especially with our kids. Like it's really, really interesting, and to see it play out, like my oldest, I'm like, wow, he chose me and my husband. Like it is so crystal clear why this being chose us to be his parents. And people have heard me talk about it. He's an amazing kid, but he's really, really challenging. And I think that with Garrett and I, like we needed the maturity and we needed like the age on us to be able to support him fully. Like I would have never been able to support this child in even my 30s. Like I needed my
Mhm.
40s where I had some maturity, where I had some depth, where I had some real life experience. Not that you can't have that in your 20s or 30s, but like for me, it's just like I love being in my 40s. Like I love it. And I feel like it's given me the knowledge that this being that chose me like really needed. I couldn't have been able to be the mom that I am if I would have had him when I was like 32, for instance.
And I love that too, because it brings up as well, like the difference between you and your partner's chart. And there's going to be times where the partner that you choose, or the kids that you have, or the friend that you're in connection with, or the business partner that you go in with is getting ignited or aspected so much more heavily than you
Mhm.
are. So I
Mhm.
love that you
Mhm.
bring up the karma of bringing another person into not only the world, but like the realm of the transits that are happening at any given period of time. Because it's like, it might not make sense for your chart, but it makes sense for the other person's. And to
Mhm.
me, it shows the interconnected oneness on such a deep and visceral level where it's like there truly are no coincidences. And I think astrology gives a language to that where you start to understand yourself and other people and the world around you so much more clearly and vibrantly
Mhm.
because you have this basis to understand it all. So I'm so happy to hear that
Yeah.
he found you, and that's
Yeah.
always been my hope, like at the period of time where I did finally decide to bring this little being earthside, that it would make sense for me, my partner, and this child in such an undeniable way. And I'm
Mhm.
very happy to be the first person for many generations that's not having a baby during my Saturn return, because that was a nightmare for my family.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it gets really interesting when you start looking at sibling charts together. Like, I mean, even just, I won't go deep because we're going to wrap soon, but even just looking at, like, my first son was born when the South Node was in Capricorn, North Node in Cancer, and then his brother is a Cancer sun. And so, and I will say, like, my youngest Kai, for water, the Cancer, he is so emotionally intelligent, even in his young age, like just blows everybody away. Like even this morning, like he just like walks up to me and he's like, I'm feeling sad. The kid's 3.5. And I'm like, why are you sad, Kai? And he's like, because Bodhi slammed the door and it scared me and now I'm sad. And it's just like that kind of like emotional intelligence for people who don't have kids. Like you send your kids to play therapy and OT and you listen to Dr. Becky to get that kind of emotional intelligence normally in a child. This like little Cancer baby just came into the world with it. And like his older brother who has this North Node in Cancer, like needs that so much in his life. And it's just like so clear to me when I look at their charts. I'm like, oh, wow, this makes even more sense than even when you compare their charts to mine and my husband's. It's fascinating.
Like they are little puzzle pieces for one another. And it's like,
yeah,
if you can understand soulmates through the lens of romantic relationships, I feel like you also have the capacity to understand soulmates through familial bonds and with friends and with business partners. And to me, as a 7th house stellium, it's just so brilliant to see this transgress beyond just the tiny box of romantic relationships, because I truly do believe that we have more soulmates on this planet than we typically end up talking about. And your boys clearly have that bond.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Well, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I've so enjoyed talking to you. I could talk to you all day long. But it probably would be about things that nobody would want to hear. But one day,
who's to say?
Who knows? Who knows? One day, maybe I'll either end up in Rome or you'll end up back in LA and we will meet again. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited for everything that you have coming up, and let people know where to find you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jill. It's been incredible to sit down and talk with you again. For anybody that's open to connecting with me, I'm at _Meghan Rose on all forms of social media. And I also have my Starcross Substack and podcast that you can tune into for all of my intuitive astrology updates.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. And it's been a real pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you, Jill, for having me.
Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this episode sparked something within you, maybe a new way of seeing yourself or a question worth sitting with, or maybe it just helped you remember your power. And if this episode resonated, I'd love for you to share it with a friend who might need to hear it too. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so that you never miss a cosmic download. You can find me always on Instagram at SpiritDaughter for weekly astro insights and behind the scenes moments. And if you want to dive even deeper, show notes and resources are available at spiritdaughter.com. Until next time, trust your timing, trust yourself, honor your path, and remember, the stars don't dictate your future, they illuminate it. See you soon.